Civilization 7 has been hyped for a little while now, including last year where we were meant to hear more about it. And as the hype continues and media outlets continue to speculate, and Firaxis continues to hire people like there's no tomorrow, in this video I want to talk to you about Civilization 7, from speculation, release date and gameplay hype, to what else Firaxis is up to and how they might be keeping themselves busy and distracted from Civilization 7 and the end goal. Let's jump straight in and discuss everything we know about Civ 7 and put it in context of the wider development and the wonderful studio behind it, Firaxis, and their publisher, 2K Games. Let's jump straight in. My name's JumboPixel. If you enjoy this kind of Civilization 7 content, please do subscribe and maybe even smash the like button and turn it blue or black or whatever color it's turning these days. I don't really mind. Let's jump straight in. First and foremost, I want to talk to you about what we know so far about Civilization 6. We know that it released 6.5 years ago. We know that the New Frontier Pass finished releasing in 2021. And we know that on average, if we step back from Civ 6 a little bit, there tends to be between 3 and 6 years of development between Civ games. The gap between Civ 3 and 4, I believe, was around 4 years. And then when we start to look at Civ 5 and 6s, if we exclude Beyond Earth, we end up with a period of around 5 to 6 years. We are now at that point. The 6-year threshold has been crossed. It kind of feels like historically we're due for Civilization 7. What do we actually know so far? I hate to say it, relatively little. We know that Firaxis are, as I covered at the video, hiring like there's no tomorrow. And some of these ads have mentioned things like AAA games, strategies, story-driven narrative builds, and, crucially, history. All of those other buzzwords like strategy you could associate with Firaxis' other titles, but history, it's somewhat harder to do. Speaking of Firaxis' other titles, it's important to note that the development studio behind Civ really only favors or publicizes their 3 key franchises. You can see them here. Essentially, it's Civ 6, XCOM, and that Marvel Midnight Suns, that new strategy game that was meant to be releasing in March of this year, 2022, now delayed toward the end of the year. My point here is that while we don't have specific announcements on the Civilization 7 release date, given the amount of activity that's coming out of the studio, yes, they're very busy, and we'll touch on that a little later in the video, and the amount of time that's passed, it seems likely that we will hear about that this year, 2022, I think will be the year that we hear at least a release date, maybe some trailer, maybe even some full Civilization 7 gameplay out of Firaxis. Now, there's more to be told for this story, though it's not over yet. The other crucial thing that we have to think about is what Firaxis is up to right now, and some of the negative things, some of the other side of this coin, right? We've talked the positive. Let's talk about the things that could hold us back. First and foremost, as I mentioned at the start of the video, Marvel Midnight Suns is coming. This was an announcement that was slightly unexpected. We didn't know a lot about it. It came out of the blue a little bit as they started to talk about it. If you don't know, essentially this game is very similar to XCOM. It's like the Marvel XCOM. It's a tactical shooter game, strategy game, with a very heavy Marvel theme and story to it. Clearly, given that it has been delayed from its release this year from March now through until quarter 3 or 4. We're looking around September or October probably for that. It seems likely that Civilization 7 has suffered similar delays, unless, of course, this is purely speculation. Firaxis is deciding to shift resources around internally. I couldn't comment on that, but what I can comment on is this amazing double natural wonder star in this random map in Civilization 6. I know I haven't talked about the gameplay yet, but how good is that? I'm mesmerized by it at the moment, and also being attacked by an annoying barbarian. Anyway, I digress. Let's keep talking about Civilization 7 and what else Firaxis is up to. We know that they're doing Midnight Suns, but also it's important to note here, I think, that Firaxis and many others are struggling from the same things that the world is fighting. The C word, not that C word, the other C word, that the world continues to struggle with, is likely throwing some spatters in the works and some delays. And of course, we have their other games, and finally the unknown. And I couldn't speculate on that anymore, so I'll park that there for now. I think in the third part of this video and in this third section, it's time to move towards what we should expect, when we should expect, my expectations and predictions for Civilization 7. I've already touched on it a little bit, but I think that we'll likely see an announcement this year. You can rewind if you want to hear my full breakdown of that. I also predict that Civilization 7 will bring changes to the franchise that we've not seen before. I posted a poll on my channel about what you would like to see. And it was a really interesting poll with some great findings, and in a nutshell, I think we should expect Civilization 7 to build on the Civilization 6 formula. What do I mean in particularly and tangibly with that? I think we'll see a more stepped up world that we can engage with better. Think districts done right. More sprawling cities, more natural features, and a more engaged world like humankind delivers. For example, we'll see built up leaders and new features building on some of the things that they teased in the New Frontier Pass. I think we'll also see that kind of model for the development of Civilization 7, maybe from launch, a few months after launch, or indeed at that beautiful 6-month period where DLC and new content starts to release. I don't want to make too many broad predictions here in this video, so I won't lace it too much with, say, things like release dates and so on and so forth, but I think in a nutshell we'll see an expanded, developed New Frontier Pass system. Think Battle Pass, that the likes of Fortnite or Call of Duty have developed. Clearly, Firaxis was inspired by that for their change in the development of Civilization 6's DLC, where we shifted from the Gathering Storm, Rise and Fall, sort of, here's a big dump of DLC for $30, see you in 2 years, and instead into a more sort of progressive, built-up, stepped-up system in the New Frontier Pass, and I would expect us to see more of that moving forward. But also there's something else that we should discuss here. Whenever I'm thinking about predictions, I like to also think outside the box. What else could happen? Let's step away from the dominant narrative for a second and think about those what-ifs. I think that even though the studio has signaled very strongly that Civilization 6 is done, so to speak, the wrap-up of the New Frontier Pass, the release of the Anthology, they're fairly certain, but maybe 5 to 10% wiggle room, press releases and comments, that Civilization 6 is done, the definitive edition, whatever you want to call it. There is, of course, also a third option, an alternative narrative here, that Civilization 7 doesn't come out. That instead we see a stepped up Civilization 6. New Frontier Pass the second. Season Pass for 2021, 2022, 2023. Whatever your theory is, it is entirely possible that Civilization 6 gets stepped up and built upon. I also think, given that it is the the franchise's 30-year anniversary, it's not wholly unlikely that we could see something totally different. Beyond Earth 2, or a similar spin-off development to the Civ franchise. Likewise, we could see something tacked on or remastered to an existing game. Think Civilization 5 remastered, or Civilization 5 and 6 merged together. The ultimate Civ experience, or indeed they could pull a complete remaster on us like many franchises have done and take it back to its base. Release a game simply called Civilization, bringing the greatness of all of the releases together into one. This is my curveball, my eye in the sky scenario, but I don't think it's entirely unrealistic. Maybe not now, but someday. Thank you very much for watching this Civilization 7 video. Do stick around for more in future if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, all good. Maybe I won't see you again. But either way, hopefully, I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.